Hi everyone, it's Katie, and I'm coming up to you with my February wrap up. I have finished all the books that are on my TBR, which I'm very excited about. And I'm going to tell you my thoughts and what ratings I gave it. And in the end, I'll tell you how many pages I read in the month, because I keep track of the pages I read in a month. Because that helps me keep track of the books I read and the pages, and I added up at the end of the month. So the first book I finished in the month of February was The Fellowship in the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien. It's one of the classics I wanted to read, and I read The Hobbit in January, and so I'm making my way through the trilogy, and so I finished The Fellowship of the Ring, and I saw the parts of where the movie was and how the book is different than the movie, but I still thought that the whole book was really entertaining, and I followed the story very well. I'm happy to be reading The Fellowship of the Ring, and I gave it 5 stars. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars just because I enjoyed the story a lot more. I've been told by many people that they didn't like The Fellowship because it was slow and boring, but that's kind of the story I do like, that it's slow but then it gets into action. But I still very enjoyed The Fellowship of the Ring. The next book I finished in the month of February was the Books with Friends book of the month, which was The Six of Crows by Ladybug Verdugo. This book was, in all honesty, so good. I loved it. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I fell in love with the characters, and I fell in love with the story, and I'm so happy to have found this book and read it. I'm looking forward to reading The Cooking Kingdom. I didn't read the Grishaverse before reading The Six of Crows, but I do plan to read it, start reading the previous series before I get to the new book that came out. But this story was so good, and I loved every minute of it. And so I can't wait to read Cooking Kingdom. But this book was really good. It took me a little bit to get into it, but in the end, I loved the story, and I loved all of the characters, and I loved it. I really loved Lee Verdugo's writing, so, and I also just really love this edition got. It has the black sprayed edges, so I loved Six of Crows. After Six of Crows, I read Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas, and I flew through this book. I read a lot of it, and I loved it. This story and the whole series, I'm loving so far. I've heard other people's thoughts of it, but from my point of view, I'm loving it. So I finished Queen of Shadows, and I kind of put it down, in all honesty. I believe this took me 2 to 3 days to finish, and it's a pretty big book, and the books are just going to keep getting bigger and bigger, but I loved Queen of Shadows, so I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It's such a good book, and I'm excited to read the next book in this series. I then read A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. I've had a couple of people come up and talk, my friends and family tell me that I should have picked up this book, and they were right. I picked up this book, and I loved it. I definitely would love to reread it, and I plan to continue with the trilogy, because there's 2 other books, so I'm so happy to have picked up A Discovery of Witches. I got the cover that has the characters from the TV show that is created for it, but I gave a Discovery, which is 5 out of 5 stars. And this is also a pretty big book. But I loved everything about it, and I'm excited to read the next book. And then I finished a series this month. I finished Clockwork Princess by Cassandra Clare, which means I'm done and finished with their frontal devices. I finished this book in 2 days. This book, I think, is one of my favorite books in the Frontal Devices series. Just with where the characters have gone to and everything. I cried at the epilogue because it hit me in all the feels. But I really loved Clockwork Princess. I'm excited to see The Last Hours. I believe it's the next series. Yeah, I'm excited to start reading The Last Hours, which comes out in November. Yeah, the first book comes out in November. So I'm pretty excited to see where The Last Hours goes on and everything, and see if the characters we know and love from their phone devices come back to The Last Hours. The next book I finished in the month of February is Circle of Shadows by Evelyn Sky. So I got this in a Fairy Loot box, and so I did the Fairy Loot read along for Circle of Shadows, where we read like 60 to 70 pages a day. I liked it, but I did not love it. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. It's not like I didn't like her writing. It was interesting and it was a good story. It's just I didn't really like the pacing of it, and it was a new genre that I didn't really read because I don't really use Asian mythologies and types of stories. So it was still very new to me. I loved the story in the end, but I didn't fall in love with it. Like, I'm not obsessed with it. If she has another book because I think this is either a duology or a trilogy, I might still continue reading the books just to see where the story goes. But yeah, this I didn't fully love it, so which is why I gave it a 3-star rating. Number 7 on my for my wrap up, I read Ignite Me by Tahir Mafi. The Shadow Me series is so good. I'm loving the stories. I'm loving her writing, and she's one of the newer authors I've found recently, and I'm loving the story. So this is such a great story. So I'm excited to read Restore Me and continue with this series. I gave Ignite Me 5 out of 5 stars. So I loved it, and I'm happy I picked up the book, and I'm continuing with the series. I have to. Number 8. The 8th book I finished this month was Strange to Dreamer by Laini Taylor. I did not know how much I was going to love this story and the characters and everything. I've heard so much about this book. I heard about the book by Books with Chloe on BookTube, and even from mostly Books with Chloe, and she loves this book and the series, and I thought I'd give it a shot, and so I saw it one day and I picked it up. I absolutely loved it. I couldn't put it down after it took me a little bit to get into the book. It took me about page once I hit the 100 page mark, I really got into the story and I loved it, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars because the story hooked me in, and I could not put it down after I started it. Because I was reading a couple of books at the time when I was reading Strange to Dreamer, and I just wanted to keep reading Strange to Dreamer. I didn't want to pick up the other 2 books that I was reading. But I'm excited to pick up Muse of Nightmares, and read that and see how the story continues, because it's a duology. But I really enjoyed Strange to Dreamer, so it was a 5-star read for me. Book 9, I should put the dust jacket on, but it's all the way over on my TBR shelf. I finished The Burning Maze by Rick Riordan, which is book 3 in the Trials of Apollo series. And this book was devastating. I cried, I laughed, and it's, you know you're really into Uncle Rick or Rick Riordan when he knows how to destroy your heart and your soul. And when I finished reading this, I wanted to chuck the book halfway across the room because of the ending, but also what happens. But I gave The Burning Maze 5 out of 5 stars just because I'm so into this world and these series. But it's made me want to read the 4th book now when it's not out until September. So, but I love The Burning Maze. It was a 5-star read for me. And the last, but final book that I read in the month of February was The Clockwork Princess by Holly Black. Again, I've heard so much about The Clockwork Princess by so many other booktubers and by other people, and I just wanted to pick it up and give it a shot. And I'm so happy I did, because I fell in love with the story and the characters and Holly Black's writing. So I love definitely how Jude, who's the main character in the story, has changed so much in the 370 pages of this book, and to who she'll become. So it's making me excited to read The Wicked King, which I plan to read in March. So this was a 5-star rating for me, because I really did like it, and I'm excited to read The Wicked King and see how book 2 takes up upon book 1. So for the month of February, I read a total of 10 books. They were like, it was 10 books. And in all honesty, these books, they make me fall in love with reading all over again. See if I can pile it up for you guys. Ta-da! I have to put that now. But I read a total of 10 books in the month of February, with all varying page numbers. But for the month of February, I read 4,834 pages. But that is my reading wrap up for February. I loved every single story I read in the month of February, and I'm excited to be documenting them for you. And I'll wrap up again in March. So, peace.